Today we're talking about braiding. Joining me is Jaclyn Forbes.
Hey guys.
And we're at the Aveda Institute, Toronto. Braiding hair, it's important to have a good foundation. So Jaclyn's hair is clean, it's washed, and the first thing that I'm going to do is add a little bit of styling product, like control paste, because it gives a bit of grip for me to really hold and pull that hair. So something else that I like to encourage is make sure that you have your proper tools in order to braid hair properly, and section away so that you have nice, clean working area, and it'll ensure that you get a nice final result. So I'm gonna braid one side and teach Jaclyn, and she's going to use my tips and tricks and braid the opposite side.
We'll see how this goes.
So to get it to hold in place all day, I always recommend to do it as tight as possible. Okay. So for some people, that means that it might hurt a little bit, and then it will loosen up over time. So I'm working with 3 strands, and I'm going to crisscross them. And then once I've crisscrossed once, I'm gonna add in. So you can use your pinky to add. And where I'm placing my fingers is where I want the braid to end up. So if I had my hands in a different spot on the head, the braid would go there. If you want your braid to stay super clean and you have really good dexterity, you can always use a comb, tail comb like this one, to help you section the hair. Jaclyn, you just came back from New York Fashion Week, right?
Yes, I did. There was tons of braids on the runway too. So I feel like I'll be very on trend with these looks.
And I feel like braiding is also something that you can wear spring, summer, fall, winter.
Oh, for sure.
It's always on trend.
So I know growing up, my mom always said it was easier to braid your hair when it was wet. So she would always make sure that it was soaking wet before she started my hair. Now, is that something I should do, or is it easier to braid dry?
I think texture of braiding is really up to the hair type. So for you, as we've discussed before, you have a really flat cuticle on your hair, so it's hair that's naturally very slippery. So by wetting it, it is gonna give someone like your mom or even yourself a little more grip, but keep in mind that it's gonna affect your end result. So if I was to braid your hair wet, it's going to end up looking almost with a wet look when it dries. Whereas if I start with your hair dry like this, it's gonna have a bit of a softer look to it. So as we're getting towards the bottom, I'm making sure to keep my knuckles nice and close to the head. And the tail is gonna go wherever I end up standing. So when you're doing it on yourself, if you want the tail to curl over your shoulder, make sure that you move your fingers in that direction. So I'm gonna start to really move my fingers over this way, and it'll start to direct the hair. Okay, Jaclyn, you ready to do your side?
Honestly, I don't know. This looks too good.
Well, keep in mind, you're starting out, you're just doing it for the first time. Every single time you do it, it's gonna get better.
Right.
So I'm gonna give you a little bit of control paste. Why don't you take a bit of that? Okay,
so I just run it all throughout?
So you're gonna run it through, but what's most important is just to have that little bit of grip on your fingers.
Okay.
Okay, so you're gonna divide that into 3, and then crisscrossing them over.
How do you make sure that you line up at like the same distance?
So this is where you're gonna scoot your hands up a little bit higher to your head, both hands, because this hand here is really telling you where you're braiding into. Good job, Jaclyn. That looks incredible.
Oh, thanks.
You're a quick learner.
It took me a couple of tries. I had to restart a few times. Don't be fooled by the camera.
So as you're braiding here, try if you can to actually pull your fingers closer towards your body. And what that'll do is it'll hug your braid in.
Smooth up, and I think we're calling it a day.
You got it.
Not too bad. Thank you so much. Honestly, this is a hairstyle I've always wanted to do. I just never could learn how to do it.
The second braid we're gonna do is a directional visible braid. The process is the same. I'm gonna start out with a little bit of product. This time I'm using some damage control, which is going to dampen the hair down, giving me a little bit more grip, also changing the effect or the look of the hairstyle. I've got a beautiful clean section, starting with the center part, and where I'm standing and where my hands are gonna dictate where this braid is gonna go, just like in the first braid. But you'll see I'm gonna really hug my knuckles really close to Jaclyn's hairline, finishing off about here. So my process is the same, where I'm starting with 3 pieces of hair, but this time I'm actually placing the hair underneath. So as my fingers lock in, I'm gonna pick up and add to the piece of the hair that I'm holding at the bottom. This next piece comes on top, and I'm not gonna pick up from the underneath. So I'm gonna take that all the way down to the hairline. Now, if there's any of these teeny tiny little hairs, you can pick them up to add, but it's less hair that you're adding in versus at the top, where I'm really taking that whole section and adding in. So I like to keep my work nice and clean by using a comb, but if it's too tricky for you to hold on to, just use your fingers. But I do sort of encourage that you have a little bit of a fingernail, because that can help you grip and section the hair. And to keep the braid nice and tight, I'm keeping my knuckles super flat to the head. So my fingers, you'll watch here, are gonna stay really, really close to Jaclyn's ear. Braid number 3 is a figure 8 French braid. This is a very difficult braid that I wouldn't recommend doing on yourself. I don't even think I could do it on myself. But what I would recommend is head over to the salon, find a hairdresser like myself, and we can give it a go. So this is the finished figure 8 French braid. Jaclyn, what do you think?
I love it. This one's super intricate. It's really cool.
And as I was saying before, please don't try this at home. Make sure you see a hairstylist, and we would gladly give you this look.